And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious, or maybe we should say exciting, nail-biting. Kathy, you got any other adjectives you would like to give it?
Yeah, hair pulling, nerve-wracking, yes, fingernail biting, yes, you got all of them. All right. Heart pounding.
Episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 105th episode, recorded on Thursday, February the 8th, 2024. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, here with my co-host, Kathy Amos. Today, we will be breaking down your number 14/13 Indiana Hoosiers. As Kathy said, heart pounding, nail biting, hair pulling. Just glad to get out of there with a win. 94-91 victory over the Michigan State Spartans. That brings the Hoosiers record to 19-3 overall, 10-2 in the Big Ten, keeping them one game behind Ohio State and Iowa. And actually, at this point, they're actually a half game behind because both those teams are actually playing as we're recording this podcast. And tonight, we're going to start our show as we usually do with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And tonight's banner moment, I'm going to give credit here to Seth Tao because he posted this on Twitter, so I'm going to take it that he's got correct information. But with tonight's victory, Mackenzie Holmes passes Grace Berger as the all-time winningest player in the history of the program. So congratulations to Mackenzie Holmes as she just keeps climbing up the ladder of career feats at Indiana University. And our banner moments brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, who includes Assembly Call and Crimson Cast. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. And if you haven't seen this, if you haven't been on social media, they're dropping some new IU stuff tomorrow at like 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central. So be ready for some new IU gear tomorrow morning from Home Field. You're bound to find something for you or anyone in your life. They're also dropping that school up north. I won't say their name. All right. That just loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you're supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelly School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23. That's HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And we're going to throw it over to Kathy for the Amos Hangle here, and let's get her initial thoughts about tonight's wild and woolly victory at Assembly Hall.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Oh my goodness. See if I can catch my breath. My goodness, I don't know how the women are going to be able to sleep tonight after that. They've got to have some kind of adrenaline going. So, we said it in our preview of Michigan State. Don't overlook the Spartans, right? They went into Iowa, they went into Ohio State and took both of those teams down to the wire. It took a buzzer beater from Caitlin Clark to beat them. To beat Michigan State, and Ohio State only beat them by 5 and was losing most of their game as well. And both of those were at Iowa and at Ohio State. So did I expect us to give up 91 points? No. Did I expect kind of a rock fight? Yes. So, we kind of got what we expected here tonight. And it was kind of a struggle that first half in particular. And, at one point we were down 10, but, our team came together, especially I thought in that fourth quarter, Yarden Garzone, Chloe Moore McNeil, and Mackenzie Holmes, those three in particular, I thought really stepped up. And, Sarah was great. Lexi was great. And they all played the roles in that fourth quarter in particular. And I thought our defense kind of ratcheted up a little bit more in that second half. Especially in that third quarter where we only allowed 15 points from Michigan State. But, that's what we would expect from a fairly, seasoned team. We have a lot of experience between Mackenzie Holmes and Yarden Garzone is only her second year, but she played a lot of professional ball, and we had Sarah Scalia in there and Chloe Moore McNeil. You expect this from a team that is seasoned, that they can come together at the right times and make the right plays and pull out the win when we needed it. And that's exactly what I think we got from our women tonight.
Yeah, Kathy, let's stay with this a little bit about just kind of the overall view of the game. I mean, this was just two really good offenses. We talked about this in the preview the other day. These are two of the top 10 efficiency-wise, two of the top 10 offenses in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I still didn't think we'd put 91 points or give up 91 points rather on them. But, you got to give a hat tip to Michigan State too. Maybe our defense wasn't where I expected to be, but I thought they ran some really good motion and had some great offense, and we struggled to keep up with them. We had struggled to keep up with them when they were driving, and we had struggle with them, on the switches too. And is it Arold that you say?
Arold.
Thank you. She was on fire. She didn't miss it all in that first half either. And you got to give credit to Michigan State. They had the shots, yes, but they knocked them down too. And you don't always get that. We'll talk about that. But they shot 70% from 3-point in that first half. And you got to give a hat to them all. It would have been good to say it was just our defense lacking. That was part of it. But Michigan State, I thought, ran some really good action as well to get themselves the shots and to knock them down.
Well, and the thing I noticed was that tonight, like last year, and I asked this in the Discord because Hageman just did it to us again tonight at times, but they were just going to put their head down and really drive. Yes, they had some nice actions going, but they just would put their head down. And then if we helped, this really happened to Lily in the third quarter where she came to help. Well, she left somebody wide open for a three and they nailed it. And that was the thing. They just were making threes tonight. Not that they don't normally make a decent rate, but we're going to talk about the numbers. I want to save it for a little bit. We'll get into noble numbers, but I jokingly was, or should say jokingly, but just, again, it's just too, we talked about this in the pregame or the preview. I'm kind of getting my thoughts over there. I'm scatterbrained a little bit after watching the game that, I really felt Arold was a tough matchup because I'd watched her, especially in that Iowa game. I didn't see as much of the Ohio State game, but I'd seen her in that Iowa game hit some outside shots. And I just knew that's really not Mac's forte. Mac's forte isn't going out and defending on the outside. We tried. I even put this in the text, I think, or maybe it was in the Discord. Of course, I was in the wrong Discord for a while. So, I had some, but anyway,
with Yarden,
with Yarden, I'm not sure that I liked that matchup. But again, that's another one also where I think not having Sydney changes some of the matchups that you might do. But you got to give credit, and give credit to Coach Freilich at Michigan State. She's come in there and really put a stamp on what she wants that team's identity to be. And with that, so, kudos to them. But again, heart pounding, you got out of there with a win and just chalk it up and move on because there are going to be nights like that. You just got to find a way to win. So let's move into the pivotal plays a little bit, Kathy. And I want to start this one real quick before I let you kind of get deep into it. But, we're not going to spend a ton of time, I think, in the first half, but I did mockingly say in our chat, the first team to 90 will win.
You were right.
And I was kind of being, kind of sarcastic with that, but it actually was, it turned out to be pretty true. And we were the first team to 90.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a lot of plays, I think, in that first half we could definitely, dwell on or talk about. But, I noticed right away in that second quarter that Michigan State just really started driving the ball. And we just really had a tough time, again, handling when they get a lot of steam and driving to the basket. And we saw that before many times, as you mentioned. We saw it last year with Dee Hageman, and she was doing it again to us tonight, ended up with 19 points. So hat tip to her as well. If it wasn't us playing Michigan State, this would have been a lot more fun to watch. I was a lot more, it was a lot more nerve-wracking than I wanted. But, a couple of things that I kind of pointed, just maybe not so much pivotal plays, but kind of, just kind of themes that we had from Michigan State. They did change up in their defense on us from time to time. So one thing I noted in the third quarter is they quit doubling Mac. And you could tell, the first three possessions we went down to Mac. Now she missed one, but 2 out of the 3 times we went right down to her. They didn't double, and she, made 2 of her 3. But then they started doubling her again in the fourth quarter. But it didn't seem to slow her down as much as I thought that it did in the first half. And so I thought while Michigan State made some adjustments on defense with Mackenzie, she really fought back, and especially. And again, I'm sure we'll talk about both of these players together later in the numbers section and some of the other sections. But I thought Chloe and Mackenzie tonight had a really good chemistry. In the first half, Mackenzie was getting the ball, getting doubled. Chloe was cutting and, making some baskets. And then the second half, Chloe was doing, I thought, a really fantastic job of finding Mackenzie down low. So, as Coach Woodson calls it on the men's side, they were playing some good buddy ball together, I thought. So I enjoyed what I saw from them, and we saw that a couple of times. In fact, with a minute left, Chloe finds Mac for 2, and that really helps, I thought, help us pull ahead there right towards the end of the game.
Yeah, I'm going to jump into the third quarter here. And the time there, we kind of were just kind of a little bit at a time. It seemed like every time there was a timeout, we were winning each segment by 1 point. So we were just kind of a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Then it got back. I think it was 63-60. And then Michigan State, if I remember right, hit a three to go back up 6.
That's
and
right.
I was thinking this, and I'm thinking this is just the way the game's gone. Every time we start to kind of get close, they go back on their run. Well, at 1 minute exactly to go in the third quarter, the one thing I'll point here, Hannah Sandvik banks in a three. The bank's not only open, it's open late in Bloomington tonight. But she banks in a three, cuts the lead to 66-33. And that's only her third career three. Kudos to Amanda Foster, who put that on Twitter, and I stole it there. So I'll give kudos to Amanda for putting it out there for me. And then we come back down, and Yarden hits a three to get the tie for like the first time since the first quarter. It's tied. I mean, it's like, so that's the segment I really wanted to kind of get into in this before we get to the fourth quarter, just that stretch there. But again, I'm not sure you had it on the bingo card for Hannah Sandvik to bank in a three.
No, absolutely not. Kind of like what you said too, when Michigan State actually missed those 2 free throws in a row, the way they had been shooting all night, never would have thought they'd miss 2 in a row, but they sure did. So,
or miss a couple of bunnies.
Yeah. So moving on to the fourth quarter, then I guess.
Yep.
So I thought there was a point where I thought we were really going to turn the corner, and that was with the 7-minute mark left in the game. And Sarah Scalia drives for 2, and we finally get it tied back up again, 74-74. And I wrote down, can we turn the corner? And before I even finished typing it, no, Ariel on the other end comes down and gets 2 points again. So again, kudos to her. She was, averaging around 15 points per game. She ended up coming in tonight and put up 25 on us, 9 of 11 shooting and 5 for 6 from 3-point land. So I thought that was just kind of felt like the theme through most of that third quarter into the fourth, where we get really, really close, but we just didn't seem to get quite over the hump. And I just kept wondering how that was going to be. But then not too long after that, Sarah Scalia came back down. She hit the 3-pointer and put us up 76-77. And to me, that was really the pivotal play. And I don't believe we trailed again after that point. So
no, I think it got tied at one point after that, but I don't think we were ever trailing, Kathy. Good point. I'm going to go to this mark, not long, right in that same second sequence. I mean, because at the 5:53 mark, Chloe Moore McNeil picked up her 4th foul. And at that point, I agreed with Coach Moore, and you couldn't take her out. I mean, first of all, you were making a run. And you got to trust your senior, and you get, but you're playing, you're rolling the dice there, with that, because with the way they drive the ball, you could very easily gotten yourself in a situation. But again, Coach Moore, knowing her player, knowing and trusting Chloe to play, like you said. But I know some coaches would have been tempted to be like, oh, I'll see if I can buy a minute or two here and get her down to about the 3.5 minute mark and then bring her back. But I just thought that you were on a roll. You had been trailing most of the night. So I thought that was pivotal from the standpoint that Chloe never did foul out.
Yeah, absolutely. I had noted that down too as a very pivotal play. Earlier we had Ariel getting her 3rd foul in the 3rd quarter, but it didn't seem to bother them. But that 4th foul on Chloe could have been really huge. And I'm sure we'll talk about Chloe a little bit later here. But one person I do want to talk about is Yarden Garzone. So I've come to start nicknaming her in my head 4th quarter Garzone because it seems like she seems really quiet anymore, especially in the first half of games. She seems to start ramping up a little bit more in the 3rd quarter. And then by the 4th quarter, it seems like she finally finds her groove. And, again, she did it there tonight. And with that 4:30 mark, she hit just another huge 3, I thought, to put us up 78-82 in that realm. And, Yarden, I thought, had a nice night, ended up, but so quiet in that first half, but yet she ended up with 20 points and 4 of 7 from 3-point land. And I think quite a few of those 3 outside the first one she hit in the first quarter. I think the other 3 she hit all came in that 4th quarter. So I've kind of nicknamed her 4th quarter Garzone in my head because it just seems like that's when it seemed to really get the Yarden Garzone we're kind of expecting. So what are your overall thoughts on Yarden? Again, I just feel like it's been taking her a while to get into the flow of the game.
Can she be?
Am I missing that?
Can she be 1st quarter Garzone?
I would love to see or all 4 quarters Garzone.
Something. I don't know what, and it's just like there are players like that it just for some reason it takes a good chunk of the game for them to finally feel the flow. Whereas sometimes, and I think Sarah Scalia is a really good example of the opposite. Sarah seems to come out really hunting, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. Sarah comes out hunting shots, and she's looking to get off to a quick start. Because I kind of put this with that. There were times I felt like I thought Sarah played well. I mean, we're going to talk about her a ton, I'm sure. But there's just times where I feel like both of them kind of disappear. And I think part of that is two things. One with both with Yarden and Sarah, but it's that I think other teams do adjust a little bit, trying to take away that 3-point shooter. But I think it's also that the focus gets on dumping it. And this isn't bad. This is not a criticism. It's just that it's back to, we get to like, hey, let's play inside out. Well, if Mac's going to get single team, she's going to get a lot of opportunities inside. So you can get that where it just kind of disappears a little bit, where it seems like that. But yeah, Yarden played great. I said it, I think in the Discord or in the chat, excuse me, that basically about the last 13 minutes, Yarden played as well as she had all game. You know, up until then, she really had been kind of non-existent.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have specific pivotal plays, but I did want to touch on Lexi. I thought Lexi played a really nice game, especially in the first half. Around, like, for example, in that 7-minute mark in the second quarter, she had a wide open three. She didn't take it. She actually stepped in and took a two and nailed it. And then on the next possession, she went down and drove for two more, and cutting the Michigan State lead at that point, 35-31. And then she almost had a steal on the other end. And so I thought Lexi just really played some high energy tonight, making some interesting shots too for us. And she ended up with 10 points. Now, she got all 10 of those in the first half, but I think her second half, instead, we didn't need her offense as much. And I think her defense was actually fairly good for us tonight too, but she ended up with 6 assists on the night as well. So overall, I thought Lexi's play again was really good. The one thing that I think we're really missing having her in instead of Sydney are kind of twofold. One, I think we're missing her rebounding, which seems, kind of obvious to everyone. She did end up, so she only had 1 rebound tonight. And obviously that's a big gap between what Sydney usually gives us. The second thing, though, is you can see that teams know she's not really going to shoot it from deep like Sydney did. And you could see that in particular in the second half. There was a play, she got the ball and she was trying to get the ball down to Mac low in the post. And she couldn't do it because her defender was sagging off of her because they knew she wasn't going to shoot. And when you have Sydney in there, not only do you have the rebounding, but you have yet another 3-point threat. And so I think that's when, people are trying to compare and contrast between Sydney and Lexi. We have to remember they're different positions, number one, and they're different players. Lexi's going to be in there for defense and ball handling and kind of running more of the offense and taking that off of Chloe's shoulders, where Sydney was in there for rebounding, tough defense as well, but also for shooting the ball. And so we don't need to make a apples to apples comparison here, even though she did technically take that spot, but they're very different players. And I think those are some of the things you kind of miss without Sydney in there.
Yeah, I'm going to go in a different direction here, and I'm going to talk about the timeouts that Coach Morin took. Now, there's a negative to that as well, because she had to take timeouts because players got stuck with the ball in traps, corners, however you want to phrase it. The one was after they got across half court, and it was Chloe who dribbles basically right into the corner and picks it up. And we had to take a timeout there. Lexi did the same thing in the backcourt. And then we came out of the timeout, and I think we only had 4 seconds to get it across half court. And Lexi airmailed it, trying to throw it up the sideline. But those timeouts were crucial, though, because you were trying to make sure that you didn't throw the ball away and keep possession. And the one with Chloe actually worked out. We came out of that and scored. But it burned timeouts to the point where we really were at the end of the game, where if in a different scenario, maybe where it's tied or we're down 1, we might have been wishing we had those timeouts. So those are pivotal plays, because at the time, and I know people will come back and be like, well, you should have saved. Now, you also got to save the possession. In a game like that, you have to save a possession rather than just simply giving a turnover up on a 5-second count or a steal or whatever. So I kudos to Coach Moore, but you could tell she was getting a little frustrated by having to take the timeouts because, you with that. But again, that'll be something they cover in the film session. But in the course of the game, I know exactly her mindset was got to save this possession, and kudos to her.
Yeah, I agree with it too. I know that wouldn't have been her first choice to been able to take those 2 timeouts when there was kind of to save those twice that she had to save those possessions. But I agree with you. I think that was the right call. You don't want to have a turnover there either. And clearly, Michigan State rather had ratcheted up their press again, and it was really rattling them there late in that fourth quarter. And so I think they needed that. The unfortunate thing is right after that timeout, like you mentioned, Lexi immediately tripled it over the sideline instead of trying to go down the middle, and went to the sideline, tried to throw it, and it just ended up into a turnover anyway. But luckily it didn't come back to bite us in the end. So
I'm not going to try and harp on it tonight, but
Nope.
middle of the press. I wish we'd
Thank
go to
you.
the middle more. But anyway, I will say this. The last thing I want to finish up pivotal play because they worked for us. But
Yes.
after the way Michigan State had shot all night, to the fact that they basically missed a couple bunnies at crunch time really helped, because obviously, it made difference in time and score and scenario, time and score scenario. But, we kept saying in the Discord, we kept saying in the chat, they're going to miss some shots. At some point, they got to miss some shots. At that point, you didn't think they were going to necessarily miss some shots inside the lane.
Yeah, especially that last one where Chloe, obviously with 4 fouls, she just pulled back from Dee Dee Hageman and was like, yep, you go right ahead. And I don't know if Dee Dee was like surprised by it or not, but she completely missed that layup. So thank you for finally missing one late.
Yeah, I agree. So you got any other pivotal plays you want to talk about?
Nope, I think we hit them all.
All right, let's move on to the noble numbers. And Kathy, since I'm hosting tonight, I'll let you go first on the noble numbers here. I think we got several we can pick out.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start. You're right. There are quite a few. So I think we'll start with the most obvious one here, which is the shooting. And to be honest, it was kind of shooting of both teams. You had just amazing shooting from 3 on both sides, to be honest, like 10 of 20 for Indiana at 50%. You take that any night. The unfortunate thing is that Michigan State was that much, just a little bit better at 12 of 18 for 67%. And overall, the team shot 59% field goal percent for Michigan State and 67% for us. So I take that any day of the week for sure. It's just, it was, you could tell, like you mentioned, you were thinking first team to 90, and that turned out to be quite true. But the shooting from both teams was just something to see tonight.
Well, and that's the thing. You look at our numbers, 67% for the game, 50% from field, and we won by 3. If you would have said before the game we were going to shoot those kinds of numbers, you're thinking blowout. But they shot, like you said, 59%, 67%. The one place where we were definitely better than them was at the free throw line. We were 88%, they were 72%, and they missed a couple free throws there down the stretch as well. So I'm going to go to another one, and that's points in the paint, Kathy. And that through the first half and maybe through the first 3 quarters, Indiana was trailing on points in the paint, and Indiana ends up +4, 40-36 on points in the paint. And again, it's not a huge margin, but in a game that you only win by 3, it definitely is a big thing, because again, I thought they made a little better effort of really pounding it into Mac in the second half, and Mac converted better. She didn't shoot it all that well in the first half, but especially third quarter and down the stretch of the fourth quarter, Mac was going to make shots, and so that points in the paint, especially because there was a part there early in the game. I want to say we were down like -8, even or something like that on points in the paint.
Yeah, that's right. I know at halftime I wrote it down. We were down 22-20, so it was fairly close. But yeah, we really needed to turn that around with our normal game plan. One number I want to definitely highlight too is 10 and 10. Both teams had only 10 turnovers. But the nice thing is that we had 10 points off of their turnovers versus 5 for them. It's nice to see that number come back down, because as we all remember on Sunday in that Ohio State game, in the third quarter alone, we had 11 turnovers. So we had more turnovers in one quarter than we had the entire game tonight. So it's good to get that cleaned up, especially with Michigan State and their press tonight. Now, I get it. The Michigan State press is not quite as aggressive, I don't think, as the Ohio State press. I don't think they execute it quite as well, but it feels like they corrected some things that we saw on Sunday and really valued that ball a little better. I didn't think they got quite sped up as much tonight either as they felt on Sunday with that Ohio State press. So I think they definitely learned from that. Coach Moran talked about it in her pregame preview, if you will, about how she really wanted them to slow down, think about it more and take their time about what they were doing and not feel so rushed. But like you, I still think that there were times where they could have attacked the middle of the press a little bit more, but it didn't seem quite as egregious as it was on Sunday. So I think that we handled it a little better tonight.
Yeah, and this is kind of one that's a oldie but a goodie, Kathy. 24-5, Michigan State in bench points. Again, we only got 5 points off our bench tonight. Now, I will say this in defense of Lene and Jules and Lily especially, and even Hannah and Hannah who hit the three. We kind of joked about a little bit earlier. I know there's not a ton of numbers here, but none of them played more than 5 minutes tonight. But I really felt like that Jules and Lene gave us a little something tonight. Even Lily, I thought but again, Lily in a bad matchup. That Lily's not right now, neither. And we said this about Mac. They're not really going to go out and guard on the arc very well. But I felt like Jules, and that's kind of what we were talking about in the Discord, and you and I in the text messaging. I get why she probably put Hannah in. But I really would like to see Lene, because I really felt like Lene was a little more offensive weapon, even maybe a little more than Jules. But the one thing I like about Jules is willing to stick her nose in there and make a play. As you had in the notes we didn't really talk about, she took a charge in like the second quarter, maybe it was the first quarter, but she's not afraid. And but yeah, 24-5. And you saw that in the rotations. The Michigan State, you could tell they were subbing way more often than we were.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely shortened our bench up quite a bit. None of our bench played more than 5 minutes tonight. Sarah Scalia ended up playing the entire game at 40 minutes. Chloe Moore McNeil, 39 minutes, including even after she got that fourth foul, she ended up staying in there that whole time. Mackenzie and Yarden, both 35 minutes, and then Lexi played 33. So there were some heavy minutes played by our team tonight versus if you look at Michigan State, of their starters, 38 for Dee Hageman and Joyner 37. Otherwise, they were all 31 or under. So they definitely were able to spread it out. So I felt like they were a little bit more of a deep team in terms of what they could rely on. Now, they only played 7 players versus we did play 9. It just felt like they got a lot more from those 2 where they could spread those minutes out. So definitely seemed like they were a little bit of a deeper team, and that showed up in those bench points for sure, with 24 bench points for them. The other number we were talking about going into this game is rebounding. So at the half, we were well behind in rebounding, 13-8. But they really seemed they must have talked about it, I'm assuming, at halftime to really start, especially on the defensive end. And we ended up winning the rebounding battle, 19-24. We limited them in second chance points finally to 10. They had 8 in the first half, so we only limited to one more second chance bucket after halftime. And so I felt like that was a good adjustment from the team, and it was really nice to see. And again, it's kind of back to, we were talking about in the preview, how we seem to have that rebounding margin starting to shrink. And it worried me in the first half, but they definitely righted the ship in the rebounding area for us tonight in that second half.
Yeah, and only gave up 6 offensive rebounds. Part of that also was the fact that Michigan State wasn't missing a lot of shots through the first 3 quarters, so there wasn't a whole lot of rebounds.
Nothing to rebound.
Seriously, there really wasn't, but like I said, at one point there, it was like 10-2, 10-3 in the first half, and it was a pretty lopsided. I don't have any other numbers, Kathy, unless you do, because I pointed out the ones, you hit the ones I had highlighted, so I'm ready to move on to the game ball if you are.
Sure.
All right. So we're going to pull up the game ball here, and we're going to let Kathy go first here. But so far this year, we have Mackenzie Holmes with 9, Sarah Scalia with 5, Sydney Parrish and Yarden Garzone with 3 each, and Chloe Moore McNeil with 1. And so we're going to let Kathy go first tonight on the game ball.
My goodness, I think there are a number of ways to go, and I'll be honest, I'm still trying to decide here in my brain. So all 5 of our starters end up with double-digit points. So Lexi and Chloe both had 10 points, and then you had Yarden, Sarah, and Mackenzie both all 3 over 20 points. But I think the impressive storyline for me and stat line, if we're going to look at stats as well, is the 10, 10, and 10, and 10, 10, and 11, which is Chloe Moore McNeil's stat line, 10 points, 10 rebounds, and 11 assists. So she got a triple-double tonight. And I know she had some trouble with some of the fouls, but I thought some of those were maybe some no calls that went against her. But boy, to have a triple-double, and I'm good throwing this out there. I have no facts to back me up, but I'm guessing this has got to be her first triple-double of her career. Yeah. So I'm giving her my game ball because I think that's just an amazing feat to be able to do with that. We hear it all the time. are very rarely, on the men's side. And just to see that, I thought that was great. And what we needed from Chloe tonight is what we got. We had some tough defense. She gave us some points, but she really found, especially Mackenzie down low, and she really did a great job of hitting those boards, which we haven't seen a whole lot from our guards this year. So for me, it was Chloe.
Yeah, and I think she's only the second player. I think Grace had 2, maybe 3 triple doubles in her career. So I think Chloe becomes only the second player ever with a triple double. I'm not 100% certain on that, and we'll try and check on that for the next podcast. But yeah, it's definitely her first triple double. And again, you can talk about Mac and her numbers, but I will say this. And I'll come back to it. Well, I'll say it here too, but Mac had the points, but Mac didn't rebound tonight. Mac only had 3 rebounds, and your All-American, none in the first half. Your All-American center has to find a way to get on the glass a little more than what she was doing. Now, again, Michigan State wasn't missing a lot of shots.
Right. That is so fair. Very
fair.
I get
that. But when Chloe's able to grab 10 and Mac only has 3, that part of that. So again, it's hard for me to go away from the player who does something that's not done very often in Indiana women's history, and that's Chloe Moore McNeil with the triple double. So I'm with you, Kathy. We'll make it unanimous and go with Chloe.
Awesome.
And that's going to make her second.
That's
game
correct.
Ball.
Her
second game ball. So let's move on. Now this one may get a little harder because we got a lot of people that can be in consideration here for the Grace Berger hardest worker.
Yeah. It is harder, right? I mean, I think you could look at Yarden if you want to talk about her fourth quarter performance. I didn't land on Yarden just again because I thought her first half she kind of disappeared after she made that first 3. Yes, she came alive when we needed her to, but like you said, can we maybe get a little more consistency from Yarden? As we were joking around, instead of fourth quarter Yarden, can we have her all 4 quarters instead? I think Lexi is one you could absolutely look at. I don't know if she's scored double digits before, but if she has, it's not been very often. And she had 6 assists to go with it. And I thought she played some really nice, really great defense as well. And then I think Sarah Scalia put up 21 points for us as well, hit some really clutch free throws at the end. But for me, I finally settled on Mackenzie with her 28 points. And for me, I think she just kept battling down low and finding the right position. And even after they started doubling her and even triple teaming her in the third quarter, I think she worked really hard to finally get to those 28 points. And we really needed every one of those going against Michigan State tonight. So for me, I finally landed on Mackenzie, but I probably wouldn't argue with any of the other at least 3 of the other starters too.
And some of this you're splitting hairs, but you notice like Sarah 21 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals. Like you said, Yarden played well, but I just felt like there was too much of the game where Yarden wasn't involved. In fact, she got, to a certain degree, I don't think she had foul trouble. So to a certain degree, she got benched in the first half because there was a long stretch there where she didn't play.
Went and checked, Jeff, because I thought maybe she had 2 fouls on her and they were trying to save her. No, she absolutely didn't. So yeah.
But she still played 35 minutes. So,
exactly.
But so I'm going to go with you. I think what puts it over for Mackenzie here, not only the points, but Mackenzie had 4 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 steals. So I'm going to make it unanimous, and we'll go with Mackenzie Holmes here. And we forgot to give the read here for those of you who are watching live on the YouTube feed that Sydney Parrish is leading the way with 5, and that'll give 5 now for Mac. Lexi Bargesser with 4, Chloe Moore McNeil with 2, Chloe with 3, Sarah with 2. Along with Lene with 2 and Lily Meister 1. So those are our hardest worker awards for tonight and for the season. So, Kathy, anything else you want to add here before we move on from the hardest worker or the game ball?
No, I don't think so. I know there's a lot of people in the chat. There's votes all over the place for both game ball and Grace Berger hardest worker. So just want to take time to point out, I think you're all right. So because it's hard. You had all 5 of our starters, I thought, played different roles in their game tonight. And I thought they played them all really well, especially down the stretch. And that makes this really hard, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah. And again, that's part of it. Sometimes we encourage that as well. We want the workaholics to have a little bit of a difference of opinion with us on some of this, because it wouldn't be any fun if it was just everybody agreeing with us. So, so Kathy, why don't you take us into Mac Wash, because she's getting closer.
Yeah. Yep. So Mackenzie tonight had 28 points again, 3 rebounds and 3 block shots. So the biggest one that we've been really keeping an eye on are the points. And so to tie Tyra Buss now for first place. She needs 16 points. So 17 points to take the lead. So if she gets those 17 points, she's been averaging just over 20 per game. That would be the next game, which is on Sunday against Purdue at home. So there'll be a very interesting thing to watch on Sunday in particular. That storyline, I am sure, is going to be something we'll hear about in the TV feed. On the rebounding front, she is now up to 933. She is in 5th place, and she needs 37 rebounds to go for 4th place. Her 3 blocks moves her to 240. She's still in 2nd place and 29 rebounds, 29 block shots behind. So she would really have to have quite a few more nights like tonight where she's getting 3 or 4 block shots to take over that 1st place. But definitely, I think that 1st place point total is something we'll see for sure eclipsed. It just now is a matter of when, not if.
Yeah. And it certainly would be nice in a win on Sunday against Purdue.
Yes, absolutely.
What will be interesting is if she gets there, will they stop the game to note it,
Right.
or will it be more one of those things that they'll make it like an announcement after the game to honor her? You know,
right.
Again, we've talked about
Or
this in a couple episodes.
Coach takes the timeout and to
that could
honor
be.
her too. But it depends maybe too on how the game is going. I would guess, this is Kathy's guess with Coach Morin, that I don't think she stops the game. I would think it might be an after the game kind of moment, but that's how I'm kind of thinking about it, but we'll see.
Yeah. So, but like I said, we talked about this a few episodes ago about different ways you might do it in a high school game, but that's entirely different from a Division I, Big Ten, Power 5 game.
Right.
So I'll really be interested to see how they do it. With that. So speaking of which, our upcoming opponent is Sunday at home against Purdue, February the 11th, 2:00 Eastern, 1 Central. Get this in before you watch the Super Bowl. All right. And unfortunately, it's on Big Ten Plus. So it's going to be more on the subscriber side again here. So, but I think this may be one of the last games we have on Big Ten Plus from that standpoint. But Purdue just got to win their night.
It is.
Okay.
This is the last one on Big Ten Plus.
Purdue just got a win the other night that broke a 7-game losing streak. So they're currently number 78 in the net. They lead the all-time series 53-41. But IU now 22-21 against Purdue at home in Simon Scott Assembly Hall. We won the last meeting back in January in West Lafayette, 74-68. We've won 10 in a row in the series, 14 of the last 15. Purdue comes in. They'll be 10-12 overall, 3-8 in the league. They're offensively, they're averaging just over 68 a game, which is 11th in the league. They're giving up 69, which is 10th. Their field goal percentages, they're really struggling. They're shooting 42% from the field, which is 12th. They're giving up 42%, which is 11th in the league. Their three-point field goal percentage is 33%, which is 10th. They give up 35% beyond the arc, which is 13th, next to last in the league. The one area where they're good is free throws. They're 78%. They're 3rd in the league. They're 12th in rebound margin, and they're 11th in turnover margin. So for when you look at the stats, and I'm not saying to take them lightly because it's a rivalry game, but you can understand why they're struggling toward the bottom part of the league at 3-8. Kathy, why don't you take us through some of the personnel?
Yeah, absolutely. So Katie Geralds is their head coach. This is her 3rd season at Purdue. She is a alumni and former player for Purdue as well. But so far in her tenure at Purdue, she's 46-38 overall and 19-27 in the Big Ten. In terms of coaching in general, this is her 11th season overall with a 75% win record. So there's a few players that you want to keep an eye on in terms of Purdue individuals. So Abby Ellis is a 5'6", 5th-year senior guard. She's averaging 13.5 points in the points per game with the 18th in the league. She has just under 4 rebounds per game. She shoots 41% from the field. She's a very good free throw shooter, 84%, which is 8th in the league. And she's really good at stealing the ball too, at 1.5 steals per game, which is 15th in the league. Then Caitlin Harper is a 6'3" graduate guard. She is averaging 11 points per game, 4 rebounds. She shoots 54% field goal and 31% from 3. Next is Madison Layden, who's a 6'1" senior guard. She is averaging right at 10 points per game, 3 rebounds per game. And then her 3-point shooting is 1st in the league at 44% in terms of percentage. So got to watch her shooting the 3 again on Sunday. Then last is Janae Terry. She's a 5'11", fifth-year senior guard. She averages 5.5 points per game, but she rebounds at 7 rebounds per game, which is 10th in the league. She's also really great at sharing the ball, so you got to watch her in terms of her passing. She has 6 assists per game, which is 2nd in the league. And she also has 1.6 steals per game, which is 11th in the league.
Yeah.
Do you want me to talk about some of the her hoop stat, or do you want to cover that?
Just no, but I'll let you go with the her hoop stuff. But I just want to mention that Caitlin Harper in the game at Purdue really gave us some fits. 18 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists from the 6'3" graduate guard. And talk about Janae Terry. She doesn't score, like you said, like you mentioned in the stats, 5.5 a game, but she only had 4 points, but she had 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals in that game at Mackey. So don't just think it's about scoring. This is a young woman that, again, a 5th-year senior that hasn't beaten Indiana, and that's the other thing now that I'm sure Katie Gerald's is talking with her players about. We're Purdue. This is not supposed to be going this way where we're losing 10 in a row, 14 out of 15 to Indiana. Yeah. We all love it, but we all grew up. It was a completely opposite of that in the rivalry, and which is great to see for us as IU fans. But you know darn well she's talking to those seniors about this may be your last chance to get a win against Indiana. So don't underestimate them. They may not be playing great, but it's a rivalry game, and even though it's in Assembly Hall. So, just don't overlook them just because of their record.
Yeah. What is the saying? In a rivalry game, all records are off. Yep. So don't, absolutely. It's Purdue weekend, and it doesn't really matter. So hopefully our crowd shows up. They show out really loudly and really get behind the team and help push across. I think that was, we should give an honorable shout out to, real quick, go back to tonight's game. We had over 8,500 people again at the crowd tonight, and boy, they got loud in that 4th quarter, especially. And I think that really helped propel our women here to a win. So hopefully we'll see that in Sunday as well. So from the Her Hoop Stats website, Indiana, according to them, has an 80% chance of winning, and they predict that at 80 to 69. So the Her Hoop Stats rating has IU at 8th overall and Purdue at 82nd in terms of offensive efficiency. IU is 11th and Purdue is 123rd. On the defensive side, IU is 81st and Purdue is 268th. Effective field goal percentage for IU is 58.2%, which is 2nd, and 47.1% for Purdue, which is 124th. Points per possession, IU is 3rd in the nation at right around 1, and Purdue is 105th at 0.8 points per possession. IU's rebounding rate is 67th, and Purdue's is 198th. Assist rate, IU 41st, and Purdue is 46th. So Purdue is pretty good at sharing the ball when they can make it, I guess. So
yeah.
But again, like you said, Jeff, you can take all these stats, you can take the record, you can just throw them all out the window. They need to bring it and not overlook this Purdue game at all going into Sunday.
And let's be honest, some of those efficiency numbers offensively are going to go up after tonight, and the defensive efficiency is going to go down. Right. So those won't be huge changes, but yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that, for all the things that we've talked about, and again, we've only lost 3 games. That's the thing. A lot of people are acting like there are times when we lose, like we've lost like 3 or 4 in a row. We've lost 3 games all year, and they've all been on the road, and they've all been to teams that right now are basically top 6 in the country.
Yeah,
or top 6, I think, because Iowa's 2, Ohio State's 5, and I think Stanford was 6th in the latest poll. So, but this is a pretty good offense. It may not be the one thing that we've talked about, Kathy, throughout this season, and Terry Morin has said it. It just may not be the same defensive, gritty team that we're used to. But I'm not saying you're going to win every game 94-91, but this is a team that's going to have to put some points. Have to put some points on the board. I'm not sure you're going to see. When you go back to the Allie Patberg and that first year we kind of did the show with Lex and Nicole and Allie and Grace, that team could win games 58-55, 55-53, something like. But this team, I'm not sure. I think they've got to be a little more free flow, which when they are, they're really fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that definitely if we compared our numbers defensively this year to last year, it's not quite as locked in as we did last year. But I think on the offensive side, I think we're putting up
Yeah.
some really great numbers. I mean, shoot, we just put up 94 again tonight against a very good, formidable Michigan State team. So, and that was not in overtime. So, just some high level offense that we saw tonight in general. It was kind of a fun game to watch, actually.
So
Heart pounding, but fun.
So let's go real quick. There was a big game in the Big Ten on Tuesday night. After getting beat by Rutgers over the weekend, Nebraska bounced back and beat Michigan and Ann Arbor 65-59. So Michigan also really still kind of a conundrum in the league, really trying to figure out where they are. Right now, Penn State and Iowa are in the second quarter. Iowa's up 48-41 with a minute 40 to go in the game there. Appreciate the nice words, Eagle Eye. We really do from that standpoint. And Ohio State is at Minneapolis tonight playing Minnesota. They were up earlier in the second quarter. But again, Minnesota's
They're
struggling.
Up 29-24 at half. They're
Okay,
by
so
5 at half. Yep.
So without Maura Braun, Minnesota's really struggling without their best player, but right now they're locking in and playing. So as of tonight, Ohio State and Iowa still pacing the conference at 10-1. IU is a half game behind at 10-2. Penn State's next in fourth at 7-4. Michigan State's fallen to 7-5 along with Nebraska, and Michigan is at 6-6. So that's kind of that top half of the league. Remember, the top 4 teams get the double bye in the Big Ten tournament. So not only do we want to stay in the race for winning the Big Ten, we definitely want to make sure. And that's why tonight, to me, Kathy, I really want to I didn't bring this up, was huge because had we lost to Michigan State, now you fell back to 3 wins. Michigan State would have improved to 8-4 in the league. Penn State would have been kind of hanging around in there. So now you start to get talking about, well, can we hold on to a top 4 seed? Because maybe now 3 losses, and we talked about this in the preseason show. I don't think 3 losses get you the Big Ten title, especially with where we're at now in the league.
No.
So, but that win tonight kind of spaces Indiana out. The top 3 kind of continue, especially. But if Penn State can win here in Iowa tonight, that's going to, that'll jumble up some things. But right now, the top 3 with 10 wins each in the conference, and if Penn State loses, they'll fall back to 7-5 as well. Right. So you'll really get even more space between those top 3 and the rest of the league. Your thoughts on kind of the Big Ten in general?
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned the Sunday matchups, but there's a couple of big games going on right now with Iowa and Ohio State playing right now, but they both play again on Sunday, both on the road. So Iowa is going into Nebraska and playing on the road there, and I'm just not sure what to make of Nebraska anymore. So I think that is an interesting one to keep an eye on for sure. But the other one, Ohio State and Michigan State. So the 2 teams we just played against, lost to one at Ohio State. Now Ohio State's going to go up to Michigan State. And I would guess Michigan State is going to get some payback for that 5-point loss they experienced in Columbus. So I guess now we can be Spartan fans and we'll be Cornhusker fans on Sunday as well, because we definitely need Iowa and Ohio State both to kind of stumble on one of these games coming down the stretch, and we need to hold serve, if you will, for the rest of the year to be able to have a chance at that conference title. So we're running out of games for sure, but we're doing our part here, beating Michigan State tonight. But after tonight, we only have 6 more Big Ten games in the conference regular season. So we don't have any luxury here to look ahead. So we got to take care of business at home against Purdue on Sunday.
Totally. I agree. Great way of phrasing it, Kathy. So you got any other things you want to include for final thoughts here?
No, it kind of felt like my final thoughts.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to follow it up here with just a huge win. A couple other, my friends I was texting with, as well as with you and Ari and our group chat, that, I'm not sure I can really remember what felt like such a big a win for a while. I mean, just, the fact that, we were behind a team that was playing really well in our gym, but still they were hitting shot after shot after shot. And to be able to make that comeback and to get out there with the W and keep yourself in the race. I just can't really think of a bigger win, at least this year, and especially going back even into last year. You maybe have to go back to the Iowa game in Assembly Hall, where you felt like it was such, as big a win as you had.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was, again, hopefully no one was too terribly surprised by how close this game was. But it was definitely a rock fight. And our women, again, they pulled together when we needed them to. I know I've said that a couple times in the show, and I'll say it again. We got from them what we needed to get from them at the right moments. They played their roles and they did what we needed them to do. And to me, that shows a very experienced, well-coached program that we've really come under Coach Morin to expect at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, coming up in our upcoming schedule, and we'll be back on Sunday, as we mentioned earlier, after the Purdue game. That tip time is 2 Eastern, 1 Central. So we should be on around 4 Eastern, 3 Central, and get you ready for, watch, come watch us. Don't watch the Super Bowl pregame show. We'll be way better and won't be near as repetitive and such. So, so again, that's on Sunday, February the 11th. Assembly call will be on Saturday night after the Purdue game. And I did not put that time down, but I just know it's Saturday night. So that will be on after the Purdue game.
8 Central, 7 Central.
Yeah, so it'll be a little
8 Eastern, 7 Central. Yeah.
So it'll be a little bit later start for somebody call. They do have one tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to be on live, but Coach Tonsoni is actually going to be doing a kind of a preview show with somebody from the Purdue side to kind of preview the game. So keep an eye out for that, either on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast feed from as well. Yep. If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Back Home Network. That's the @ youtube.com/@Back Home Network. You can be a part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Designs for designing our logos. Also, a big thank you to Bob Thompson for our music that you've heard throughout the broadcast. I want to thank all of you, those of you who listen to us on your favorite podcast feed, or for all of you who are with us tonight in the Workaholics. Thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk with you, High U Hoops, again with you on Sunday. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right.
And we're out of here.
Yeah. Can you believe it? Only 6 more games, right? I did the math right. Yeah. 6
we
more.
We know there's at least, and take that out, we know there's a minimum of 8. You're going to play at least one in the Big Ten tournament and one in the NCAA
6 more regular season games.
Yep, 6 more. I know, season's flying. It's like Kim and I were talking about that a little bit today. For those of you still listening, my wife Kim and I were talking a little bit about just feels like, because the way the weather's been for the most part, outside of that 1 week where we had the snow and the bitter cold, it's been fairly warm. So it's feeling like, it was like 55 here in Rensselaer today. So the weather has made it feel like a lot, February's just flying.
Yeah, here too. So that's good. And 2 weeks from today, Sean and I are going to be in Cancun. So I know everyone's going to feel sorry for us. The only downside is that we will miss the Iowa game because we leave that day. So, but that's all right.
Yeah. So, hey, we're going to get out of here, everybody, because we got work tomorrow, and appreciate everybody being here.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone. Night.